Consider and take action regarding the differing reports from the County Auditor concerning the amount of cash on hand as of September 30th, 2013. I did ask several months ago if my son with some experience in accounting would help me sort this out, so I'm going to ask him to make a presentation to get us started on this agenda item. Steve, you need Rachel to help put things on screen. Would you introduce yourself?
I will. Hello, Commissioners, Judge. Thank you for the time to make a presentation. As you've heard, I am related to Judge Lacy. I'm his youngest son. As a matter of introduction, I attended Redwater High School and graduated valedictorian from Redwater in 1984. Went on and attended Texas County Community College after that. Earned an associate's degree from there. Went to East Texas State University after that, Texarkana, which is now the A&M campus here. Graduated with honors, with my Bachelor of Business Administration with a major in accounting. Since I graduated, I've put in over 21 hours experience in auditing and doing the accounting functions for almost exclusively nonprofit organizations. I audited for the first 5 to 6 years out of college in public accounting, left and went to a handful of organizations after that over the next 15 years, and progressed from positions of assistant controller to comptroller to senior vice president of finance, with entities that had revenue from $2 million to well over $100 million. I go through that just to kind of set up why I'm here, because my dad, the judge, asked me back in March, maybe April, since I had that experience, if I could come help and look at some information he'd been getting from the county auditor that was conflicting, had different varying amounts, really specifically in this topic review, having to do with the cash balance at September 30th of last year end, which is the beginning balance for here. Mike, you had mentioned earlier we spent some time together. I'm going to disappoint you, I'm not a leprechaun. I don't have a pot of gold. I'm not up here with an answer that's going to wipe away the issue. It's a serious issue. The county has a handful of them. And there is no magic bullet. There is no pot of gold that's going to take care of that. And my purpose here is simply to highlight the need in Bowie County to have absolutely accurate, factual, financial information so that these gentlemen can do their job running the county and make business decisions, so the department heads that they'll be making budgets with, looking at information with, as we found out here today, talking about laying off employees with maybe, so they can have accurate information. As I looked at what had been given out by the county auditor, that hasn't been happening. This is the first page I prepared here that details 4 different amounts. There were many others, but 4 different amounts of the beginning cash on hand. It was September 30th as balance that was able to be used for October 1st. These are numbers straight from reports submitted by the county auditor to the Commissioner's Court. In November of last year, he submitted a report that said there's $2.2 million in the bank available to be used for operations. Actually, there's a deduction to it. I'll show you that report in a minute. April 2014, he provides a report that says the cash at October 1st available to be used for operations was a negative $667,000. I actually got to sit with the county auditor, and he personally explained to me how he got to that number from the 3.4 million number, negative. In May, in Commissioner's Court, and then in June, to the Attorney General, the County Auditor used the negative $3.4 million balance as the cash at the beginning of this year. The last number up there is the audited financial statements that are prepared by the County Auditor and reviewed, audited, and basically verified by external CPAs, and that had a balance in the general fund, unrestricted, available for use of $0. We've heard that before already. These reports, well, let me step back. Why I really got into this in March and April, the county's broke. That's what everybody started to hear. And I came in with Judge, looked at the information, and that's when he walked in with a piece of paper that had 3 lines on it. And I'm the one that had created that. Had revenue, had expenses, had an excess of $4.2 million on it. And the simple question was to the county auditor with the information, how can we be broke if we have an excess of $4.3 million? The term modified accrual basis accounting came out. I met with Joanne, Mike, we got chances to talk about that. And we understand, I understand, I've done it for 20 plus years. An excess of 4.3 doesn't mean there's immediately 4.3 in the bank as cash. But there's a good piece of it that should be. And what the beauty of an accountant, I don't want to go too technical here, but what the beauty of an accountant using modified accrual basis accounting is, if it's done properly, you punch a button, you get a report, and you can tell what that 4.3 got used for. If it's not in the bank of cash, where did it go? Well, it probably covered some of the payables at year end. There's $430,000 on the audit as payables at year end. Probably had to pay that. There's revenue that sometimes gets booked under modified accrual basis accounting before it's received. So it's a receivable, it's not cash in the bank. Those are all adjustments to that number. But the point is there's an answer. But instead of getting an answer from the county auditor, what the court got was, well, the reasons there's no excess is there's a deficit in the cash balance coming into this year. That's when we looked again, and we started looking at cash reports provided by the county auditor during the year. In November, it was 2.2. In April, it was negative 667. In May, it was negative 3.4 million. Realize this isn't a cash balance that he's saying is changing over those months. This is a report that has a starting balance on it at the same date and time, same point in time, that is changing on these reports as he makes them later and later. When that was pressed, the county auditor replied, it's estimates. That's what we have to do in a county. We have to make estimates to come up with good numbers. That's a halfway accurate answer. A roll forward of an account, of a balance, of a number in accounting. If you do it past your day and time, you're going to make some estimates to come up with a projection for the bottom number. But for that projection to work, the top number has to be, especially in this case with cash, had better be a fact. Cash at year end was basically etched in stone for this county when the county treasurer did her job and reconciled that bank statement in October. At that point, cash is known. The adjustments have hit it. It's over. I want to take a moment right here. I want to jump aside. I want to clarify something. Everything today, based on my review and based on what I'm saying, is not a statement about cash missing from bank accounts. It's not a statement about how the county treasurer fulfills her fiduciary duties and her staff and do their jobs. It's not about that. I'm here today to talk about the fiduciary responsibility of the county auditor to provide factual, accurate, timely information to the commissioners and the judge, the members of this court, so they can do their job of running the business of this county. Because that's all you guys have to rely on. What he brings into the reports, you've got to make decisions. I sit here flabbergasted. I haven't sat through a court session. I don't live in Bowie County anymore, so I haven't been here to see it. I wouldn't want that job sitting right up there behind the podium and have the people that you're making decisions to affect every day, making them. We all get mad at board of directors and CEOs and CFOs and big corporations that are in big buildings behind closed doors making decisions, and everybody gets nailed by them. These guys are sitting right up here in front of you, making them sometimes twice a week now. Forget every other week you guys are meeting. It's about the county auditor. It's about the reporting. Here's the first report. Cash balance as of October 1st, 2013. I want to take a break here. Cash. This is my wallet. This is $10. This is my cash. I know it's my cash. It's in my wallet. I control it. If I want to know how much it is, I look in here and I see it. $10. I know there's not more because it's not bottomless. There's an end here. I know it's not less. There's not dead in here. It is cash. Okay, that's what cash is. Like I said earlier, once a reconciliation is done with a company's cash, it's known, it's reconciled. I get this wallet as an illustration, is an incredible oversimplification of how cash has to be booked, recorded, and reported. In any company, let alone a government entity that has different funds to go along with different departments. Most companies don't have that. That's why companies and governmental entities hire professionals. Professionals that have adequate education, adequate skills, adequate training. And they use that education, skills, and training to do their job. In this case, you learn it in Chapter 1 of the Intermediate Accounting Book. What is the almost sole purpose of an accountant? To provide useful, accurate, timely information to the users of your financial statements. In this case, you guys are the main users. Sometimes the bond companies will use it, sometimes the banks to give you debt, but past that, it's in here, it's in this room. That's who uses those. Right here. Cash balance at October 1st. We know that's cash, and we know it's available for operations because the next line says, less money set aside reserved for motor grader buyback, $975,000. It's taken out to go to the next line that says cash available for operations. Actually, I want to. It's not the bank balance. It's the book balance. It's right. I'll show you in the cash report in a minute. It's $2.2 million at year end. That's why it's not drawn. This is another report provided by the County Auditor, William Tye. In September, there was a commissioner in August that said, we're going to be broke by year end. Made up a nice report, put a lot of stuff on it, and showed we're going to be out of money. We got to turn in CDs, we got to sell motor graders, we won't be able to pay the light bill and pay the employees. The county auditor in September made this report. Came to Commissioner's Court with it and said, hey guys, you know what, we're not going to be out of money. I've done the look, I've done the research. We got a cash balance, we got CDs, we got revenue for the month, we got expenses. We're going to have $1.8 million in the bank at the end of September. That's what the county auditor brought in September to Commissioner's Court. Now, are you 3.4 in the hole, or do you have 1.8 in the bank for the general fund? Next report. This is the one that came out in April when a commissioner started saying again, county's broke, doesn't have money to pay the bills. We need some reports, we need some analysis, you guys got to do something so we have money. Cash balance at October 1st, negative $667,000. That's the same number that was just $2.2 million in the report made in November. All right? Cash for October 1st didn't change from November to April. It didn't. This one, I know a lot about. I was in town. William Tye came over, the county auditor, and sat with me and the judge and explained to us why that 667 was the cash in the bank for the county at year end, 667 negative. Here's the cash report. You guys have seen it. Mike had this up here a minute ago. Negative $3.4 million in the general fund. The reason that's not an overdraft, that's one line of the operating account. I'll go to the last page in a minute and show you that. The auditor sat with us and said, hey guys, here's how you get to the cash balance at September 30th for October 1st. You take that negative 3.41. You come over here. See this number right here? That's a CD. It's operating cash. It's unrestricted. Just isn't in the bank account, it's in a CD. You add that to that number. That's what I've done over there. I wrote on the side there the highlights of the county auditors. You add $1 million to it. You add that $10,000 number above it. On the next pages, this is a 4 or 5 page report. The county auditor identified other funds under there with dollars in them that was really unrestricted money at year end. His explanation was, yes, it's in this report, yes, it's in those accounts, but I know by looking at it, we've spent enough money to release any restrictions on that money. It's unrestricted, belongs in the bank account, we can use it. There's 3 of the numbers. There's 2 more of the numbers. And he went through, the county auditor did, explain to us why those were unrestricted monies. You add those all together, 1,010,000, 390,000, 130,000, 722, 78, 182. And you come to negative 667, 778. That's that number right there. In April, the county auditor uses that number as the beginning balance, cash available to be used to add some actual revenues to it, take out actual expenses, add estimated revenues, take out estimated expenses, comes down to a deficit and shows why we're not going to have any money. This is the Exhibit A that was attached to the certificate prepared by the county auditor in June. When I sat with the county auditor, it was May 8th, sometime a little bit after that. Less than a month later, in June, he prepares an Exhibit A, he attaches to his certification, sends it to the Attorney General, has you guys vote on it, brings it into you and says, we got to have money. You got to get us $5 million loan or we can't pay our bills. Slaps $3.4 million on there. Remember that sheet? 1 inch away from the 3.4 negative million number is a $1 million CD. Before we ever get into the intricacies of the accounting, of how do restricted revenues work, money in, money out, is it? You don't have to get to the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers on there. And that $3.4 million number that went to the Attorney General is $1 million off. $1,031,000 off. From his own explanation 30 days earlier. Then we have the audit.
The county auditor come to us and say he needed $5 million. That was Pat and Nate as a group of commissioners.
Would you let him finish his presentation? I'm sure he'll stay and answer any questions you have.
That was how the $5 million started.
The 3.4 negative was used as the basis for the request of the Attorney General. Audited financial statements. You've seen the actual pages. I've got them here. I'm not going to pull them up again right now. Mike had shown them to you earlier. This is the audited financial statements. They are prepared by the county auditor. They're audited by external CPAs, verified, audit report on front of them. These things are free from any material misstatements, and they're made according to accounting standards. Cash and investments, general fund, 0. We've gone from 2.2 plus, negative 667. 0 actually fits kind of in between these. That's when the audited financials were released. Actually, it's above the 667. Negative 3.4 million. This is real important. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the end here. I can't tell you what the cash balance in your county is, Bowie County. I can't tell you, members of the court, what your cash balance was. There are so many different reports, so many different variations, so many different explanations. The only thing we have that's verified by somebody other than the county auditor who's making these, every one of these reports and bringing them into you, the only thing we have are the audited financial statements. They say your general fund was 0. Like Mike pointed out earlier, that's not good. But it's sure a lot better than negative 3.4 million. Capital projects, 32 million and some change. Non-major governmental funds, which really reads restricted revenue. There's a definition back in the supplemental information for all those and details for all the funds that are in there. Agency funds, you heard Mike talk about that earlier. Those aren't the county's money. If the county is 3.4 in the hole at the year end, where is it? Where does it come from? These are audited financial statements that verify the cash on hand balance in the bank, book balance. Has outstanding checks taken against it, outstanding deposits, any adjustments made by the reconciliation, that's the number. If the county is $3.4 million in the hole, it's got to come out of one of those funds with dollars in them. That's the only place it goes. It can't come out of 0. You can't take 3.4 million out of 0. Doesn't work. Checks would be bouncing. This is the last page of that cash report for September 30th. Operating account, $2.2 million. The bank account's not overdrawn at year end. The bank account has $2.2 million in it. Now, that's cash, but that's all we have to go on right now. I get there's accounting. Hey, what if money was taken from other restricted funds? And by the way, we know they're in this account. On that cash report that Mike had showed earlier from the audit work papers, that line, Bank South, Bank Corp South operating, there is about 20 to 30 other lines in that report with positive cash numbers that add to that negative cash number that make the balance of that one bank account be $2.2 million. No checks were bouncing, no banks were overdrawn. That's the bank account balance. What we do know, though, after looking at this 5-page report, there are 67 funds, lines, accounts of money that's restricted, reserved, agency funds labeled in there. They're all in one bank account or a handful of them. At year end, all of that money on that audited financial statements, not all of them, because the big money for the bonds are up in investment accounts. But the money, a lot of the money for agency, a lot of the money for the non-major funds, the restricted, and any operating cash are in one bank account. That's where it starts getting confusing. There's 67 lines on the 4 pages of this report. What number is it? Is it 2.2 million? Is it negative 667? Is it 0? is at negative 3.4. That is a swing of $5.6 million cash at October 1st, reported by the County Auditor to you, the commissioners, to make decisions on. In November, you were making decisions, passing motions, executing checks, sending out payables based on a report that said you got $2.2 million in the bank. In April, you got to start doing on a report that says, no, you started the year with negative 667 in the bank. And by May, you're having to do on a report that says you got negative $3.4 million in the bank. Don't you think? And again, I don't know which number's right. I don't. We haven't got enough information to figure it out yet. Depending on which number's right, some of those decisions have to be bad decisions. If 2.2 million is right, and you made decisions when you thought your balance was negative 3.4 to start the year, those weren't good decisions. If it was negative 3.4 at the beginning of the year, and back in November, December, January, February, you made decisions based on the fact you were told you had $2.2 million in the bank to start the year, those decisions weren't good. Cash. Although it's complex, although it's intricate, the beauty of accounting is the system works. It's very simplistic for me to go, that's my money right there. But when the competent professionals do their job, it's just as easy to know your cash balance in a company. You don't have to have a piece of paper that has 4 different numbers. Those other versions too, these are the 4 I picked. Why does it matter? Believe me, I hear the buzz. Even not coming into this room, you can hear the buzz out there. Why does it matter? That's a cash balance 9 months ago now. We got a problem now. Mike, you mentioned a minute ago, I love you guys are doing it. You put every communication you have in emails in black and white, and you're putting it to the public as you're working in the Finance Advisory Committee. And the latest one for the Budget Update 3, I think it was, said we got a now problem. We got a shortfall in this year. Doesn't matter what the cash balance is. So why am I up here railing about a cash balance? What if 3.4 million negative is right? You should be concerned. You should be very concerned. Mike chases head, he is. We had that talk. History repeats itself. If you don't look backwards and find out who did what and when to get this place in a hole, if it is, you're going to go get a payday loan, you're going to throw it in your bank, and you're going to end up there again. You know, when bad things happen, you have to look back. Bad things that can be caused. By the way, whoever looks back to figure this out has to have accurate, factual, timely information for it to do any good. If you keep getting the same information and you keep looking back, you're not going to find the answers. You're going to find some answers. And the Finance Advisory Committee, I sat back here a second ago and made the comment to Mike, in 2 to 3 months, they've discovered more of the factual financial information for this county than I've seen in all the reports given out this year. In fact, their first report, you referenced it, their update number 1 was all about cash. All about cash. This is the list of questions that were at the back of that report. Which different funds are represented? Is it normal to combine multiple funds in the same bank account? If one or more of these funds were restricted, what are the restrictions? Are they legally imposed? Are they internally imposed? Can other parties release them? They just keep going. They are the perfect questions to find out what is the cash. Why does it matter that the county auditor has been provided multiple reports with different amounts of cash to begin with. A month ago, this court voted, approved, and sent a request to the Attorney General of Texas with this estimation on it that said we need $3.4 million. Or we need $5 million because we started with 3.4 negative. I'll find my sheet here. That sheet does the same thing as all the other ones. Has a beginning number, has ins and outs, and it has an end result. If you recall, that sheet started at negative 3.4, ended up at negative 4.6. So that's saying the operations of the year are going to be 1.2 million in the hole. Add that to the 3.4, that's why we need 4.6. Just a month earlier, the auditor prepared a similar report. It's the one that started at negative 667 of cash at the beginning of the year. It projected a shortfall of $3.7 million for the year. That was in April. In June, the auditor's going, no, you know what? We're not going to go in the whole 3.7. We're only going to go in the whole 1.2. Funny, it comes out to about the same number at the bottom. The cash number changed at the top. When he was saying cash was negative 667, you're going to lose 3.7 and you need 4.4. 2 months later, when he says, no, your cash was negative 3.4 to start the year, you're going to lose 1.2 and you need 4.6. Real close to it. What numbers are right? How do you make the decisions? By the way, when you go to the Attorney General, if you don't have 3.4 billion at the top of this sheet, we already know it's 2.4 at the very least. That cash report had the negative 3.4 and an inch away from it, it had a CD for $1 million that belonged against it. There's $1 million your taxpayers wouldn't have to pay back in the next 5 months if that report was accurate. You would have gone and got $4 million instead of $5 million. That's why it matters. That's why it matters what the county auditor puts on his reports. Hot topic. Just last Thursday, you guys, with the information, the members of the court, voted to cut pay from your hardworking, non-elected employees of the county 15%, take 1/6 of their money based on information given to you by your county auditor. Think about it for them. Because of the $5 million payday loan that has to be paid back in 7 or 8 months, the people that choose to live in Bowie County and work here get a double whammy. They're going to pay increased property tax of about 30% or up to it, and they're going to do it with 15%, almost 1/6 less of the money. That's why these reports matter, and what's on it matters. I get some are saying, hey, you know what? That cash balance has nothing to do with the budget shortfall this year. It's actually a statement Mike you had made in the Update 3 email. We got a this year problem. It's a shortfall. That one detailed about 1.4 million. It wasn't the full 2, but it was 1.4. The biggest reduction in it was an overstatement of almost $1.3 million by a couple county commissioners on their budget. I'm going to find it here in a minute. I know what I needed. That was a shortfall or an overstatement of revenue, because the statements are made, those motor graders were sold last year. So that's an appropriate statement. The budget this year, revenue, is overstated $1.3 million. Look what the county auditor tells you in November. Commissioners, for those precincts, there's $975,000 in the bank that I have set aside from the buyback of those motor graders. In November, he's telling you the money was in the bank for the motor graders. So while the budget is overstated by $1 million, you get to take the $1.3 million, you get to take the $975,000 in the bank and apply it to that overstatement of revenue. Now that 1.4, almost 1.5 million deficit that you guys had to call an emergency meeting to make cuts for is $450,000, if that number's right. You think you might have voted different if you knew you were trying to cover up $450,000 instead of 1.4? That's why it matters. What do you do? What do you do? You got to know what your cash is. Beginning cash, and by the way, such an incredible oversimplification, but it's right. And the other reason it's an oversimplification, you don't need to know just cash. You got to know the payables. Not just the payables you're coming in to pay, you got to know what hasn't been paid. Let's go back to the excess issue. I heard today, there's a 2.5 million excess, but you really don't have it because there's 900 and some thousand for indigent health care that we got to pay. There's other things we got to pay. If the county auditor is doing his job under modified accrual basis accounting, that report issued last Friday of revenue and expenses that showed a 2.5 million excess would have already had all of those expenses in it. Because they're known, they're identifiable, and they're bookable. In fact, $300,000 of that indigent health care was last year's cost, is what I understand. I haven't seen that. That would mean those audited financial statements should have an accrual in them to book a $300,000 liability. It might. The payables are $430,000. I haven't seen the detail of that or the accruals. That's the beauty of modified accrual basis. You would get a report, statement of revenue expenses. I look at it and go, like we did in April, hey Judge, you got $4.3 million excess. That's good news. It's not if your county auditor hasn't been doing his job and booking things, accruing things, liabilities when they're incurred. See, modified accrual basis accounting lets you ease up on the cash side, the revenue. You don't pull it all back until you know you're going to hit it. The expense side of the world, you book it just like every other company out there. You book it when it's incurred. You book a liability, you book an expense. That way you guys know you would have it in there. You would have it, if that was done right, every time you came, you would have a list that showed indigent health care, whoever that's payable to, you'd have that on the list as a payable. You don't wait for an invoice to come in and go, oh no, we owe $300,000 for last year. That's the beauty of modified accrual basis accounting. It gets booked when it's known and can be done. What now? Well, I think you've heard it today. And then the Finance Advisory Committee, I got to spend some time with a couple of the guys 2 or 3 weeks ago. I forget how long back. They're working for you guys. I mean, they are. It's work, and they're volunteer. And you guys got to be happy you have them, because there's a whole lot of numbers in this county. It takes all of them. A county doesn't take a accounts payable number. It doesn't take just a cash number. It doesn't take just a revenue and expense number. It takes all of the numbers to know what your condition is and what you're doing and what you need to do. Another important point. If there was really a deficit at your end, We've already seen general fund operating cash was 0. If there's a deficit, it had to have come out of either restricted agency or capital project funds. The instant you roll into this budget year with this year's budget revenue, the county treasurer and the county auditor can't take money from this year's revenue and go put it in an account to make up for that shortfall last year. Breaks the law unless you, the commissioners and the judge, members of the court, vote that's what we're going to do with this year's money. And I think Mike had said it earlier, why does it matter? If you were making the budget last year, members of the court, and you had something in front of you that says, yeah, I get there's cash in the bank account, but guys, we are 3.4 in the hole because we took money from other places. Don't you think you would have budgeted a little different for this year? Instead, all the way through to November of last year, you were getting told you had $2.2 million in the bank for operations at year end. How do you make a budget that's right? You talked about the importance of the cash number on the budget. I think that's fantastic. But with the numbers the county auditor was given, they would have been positive in your budget when you made it. Not negative, like it's being said it is now. Members of the court, you've been given a report that tells you there's money in the bank to do your jobs as commissioners and buy those graders and not have a shortfall for this year. You'll have some. You didn't cover the whole thing. You've been told there's no money in the bank. The county's going to go dark. We can't play our employees. We got to go get money. We got to go issue bonds and get a loan. Several million. You've been given multiple reports by your county auditor throughout all of the year that says your cash balance starts at 2.2 million at the beginning of the year, all the way to negative 3.4. You've been told over the course of 9 months there's a $5.6 million shift in your cash balance you started the year with. Picture you guys are board of directors of a corporation. Picture your county auditor as your CFO. Picture he's coming into you and hasn't even told it to you. I'm telling it to you. Oh, by the way, cash is 5.6 million less than what I told you it was to start the year. I kind of like Mike's stages of grief. Jump to number 2, get angry. All right? Jump to the end, but don't do acceptance. You guys, you don't stand a chance unless the Financial Advisory Committee works double time and they go and get good information and make recommendations instead of just getting to take good information and make recommendations. They might be your saving grace, but there is no way you run Bowie County and pull it out of the hole it's in, hole it's not in, without getting factual information from the county auditor. Thank you for the time.
Steve, would you stay for a moment? Did you have a question for Carol? I interrupted you.
No worries.
No questions. Any other questions for Steve?
I've got one.
Yes.
I recognize most of those numbers except for the negative 667. Can you?
And I like that. That's the one I got personally explained to me by the county auditor.
Can you explain it to everybody?
Yeah, I'll do it again. Go ahead. 667.
Another one that changed it.
Right. I want to say. So this is the number you're asking about. This is a roll forward that was put out in April. I believe it's the April. Started with 667. First one that shows up negative. Up till then it did positive. That's the same cash report you had earlier. 3.4 million negative in the operating. But you gotta realize every one of these lines labeled operating and in that same bank account. All the way down. County auditor explained to me right off the bat, that $1 million is in the CD at year end. It's unrestricted, free and clear money. cash in the bank is immediately negative 2.4 million, not 3.4 million. He then goes on to say, I've identified these other 6 funds that are unrestricted. Their restrictions have been met, they're released, even though they're still down here in this report, you can spend them for operations. They just haven't been cleaned up in the accounting book.
So the first number is the CD?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's gonna raise a point for you. By the way, I think one of the biggest, I'm glad you asked that, Mike, one of the most important actions that has to get done, and you had it on the budget update, is the accounting for the restricted funds. There's a chance you may not have restricted funds down there. I don't know. We already know there's 1.8 million. Those numbers total $1.8 million that the county auditor says you guys get to spend it. Even though it shows restricted, you get to spend it.
Can you use the mic, please?
Sure. Road and bridge lateral, $390,000. That's on the audit as restricted revenue. The auditor, the county auditor, is sitting with me the same month that the audited financial statements are issued, telling us that's free and clear, you can spend it. You flip to the audited financial statements, and the first line under the restricted accounts under the non-major governmental funds is road and bridge lateral. The exact same month, I get told to flip of what's in. Law library, FEMA, money, $720,000. Other agency fund, I don't even know what those are, but he said those are definitely released. Those are old, those aren't restricted, they're from something way back whenever. Does that answer?
Okay.
I'll get you a copy with the highlights. Those are the county auditor's highlights. My numbers are written on the front.
Was the FEMA money the one that was in the paper?
I don't read the paper. Unless it's the sports section.
Can we go back to the first page and on your handwritten notes on the side, can you
Sure.
outline each one of those additions and those subtractions?
And what do you need?
Just, can you outline the, I get the 3 million at the top?
Yep. The 1 million right below it is the CD.
Uh-huh.
And the 10,000 is actually this text pool money right above the CD.
These are unrestricted funds.
That's what was explained to us by the county auditor,
Okay,
yes.
so each one of these should be additions back into the pot.
Yes,
$1 million CD,
yes,
that was ours.
yep.
Okay, next, please.
Yep,
10,000.
390 is the road and bridge lateral.
Dan, we may not address him from the audience.
Sorry.
We've got people that we've officially asked to be here to respond to agenda items today. And I think he's gone down the list pretty well anyway. Commissioners, any questions before he takes his seat?
Judgment, I was fine.
Yes. You want to come and use the microphone so everybody can
I
hear
think
you?
everybody can probably hear me. First of all,
No, use the mic.
what is your
Here.
First of all, the zero balance that he's referring to in the audit report, that balance is not prepared by me. I give the outside auditors information and they come up with their own balances. And I think Mike has pretty well proven that. So that's not my balance. You know, I don't audit the financial statements, they do that. And I would
No,
think
my statement was you created a
well, and I give them the cash balances and they do whatever they did, and you saw it in the adjustment that Mike's put up there. Modified accrual, I'm not sure what you do. The only time we actually accrue anything is at the end of the year. We don't accrue things we pay bills as we put them in and as we receive them. The only time we actually accrue anything is at the end of the year. So, same way with revenue.
It's a choice of when you want meaningful information. The gap and gas says you book it when it's incurred.
But we're required to build a modified accrual, which requires us at the end of the year to either accrue revenue or expenses, and that's exactly what we do. We don't accrue during the year.
Then I'll make a comment to the court. There's no way you can make an accurate decision for every month of the year when you're making decisions, because you don't know what's out there. That should be done monthly. In any other corporation in the world, that is done probably more than monthly, but it's done at least monthly, so you have meaningful information of what's happening.
The only other comment I'd like to make is I will stand by the 3.4 million. A lot of the numbers that I did provide, I was asked for estimates, and that's exactly what I did. But I will stand by the $3.4 million because that's the figure that I sent to the Attorney General, and that's what's on our cash balance at the end of the year.
How do you explain the 1 million CD right next to it?
They wanted operating cash, and that's what I gave them.
Accounting
That's what
that's all.
I was told by the attorney, that's how he wanted to prepare it.
What about the other 1.8 that you told me 3 weeks earlier was operating cash?
I told you that was an estimate. That's what I was trying to come up with.
Are you talking about Tom Pollard? Made that recommendation? Yes.
I'd like to have, our auditor seems to have took a, I don't know how to put it, hell of a beat from the last 40 minutes. I'd like to have a vote of confidence by the commissioners on where we stand on our auditor. If that can be arranged. I'm satisfied with our auditor where it stands as of now. That is my opinion, for whatever it's worth.
Are you wanting to vote?
I'm wanting to vote.
We cannot vote on it, it's not on the agenda. We put it on our next agenda.
What's his name? He's not on the agenda.
We can put it on the agenda.
You can say something, Joe, everybody else has.
Well,
Let's hear it again.
Mike, very smart, very articulate, brings up some really good points. There is a question about what's restricted and what's not restricted. Mike and I have had that same question, but he made a really good case about cash. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we're trying to spend reserves, established reserves that have been in the county for a long, long time. But we need to not lose sight of the fact. The fact is we're still overspending. We can argue about whether we should spend these funds, whether they're restricted or not. But the most important thing is we're still spending more than we're bringing in. So I didn't want to lose sight of that.
Judge, may I speak
Yes.
to Commissioner Blackburn's request?
Yes.
The county auditor is appointed and is an employee of the district judges. And the district judges have confidence in the county auditor. And they are the ones that if they decide to change, that's the checks and balances that we have. And so it's my understanding our district judges, they're the ones who would make those kinds of decisions. I'm not trying to throw any water, and I understand what you're saying, but I just want the court to understand that it is not your position to have a vote of confidence in him or a vote of confidence against him. I mean, 1 for or 1 against. That is in the purview of the district judge's offices.
So I was mistaken. We cannot put it on the agenda for next time.
No.
All right. Let's move on from this agenda item.